While Mimi was studying in the library, two other smart girls approached her. "Corper Timi is holding a private lesson for us. Would you like to join?" they asked. Mimi's WAEC exam was coming up, and she was struggling with a particular subject. Although she was hesitant at first, as Corper Timi had been acting strangely towards her lately, she saw this as a chance to get his help. Since two other students were with her, she felt it would be safe, thinking Corper Timi wouldn't try anything inappropriate. The three girls walked to his lodge together. Corper Timi welcomed them in, and they immediately started the lesson, which seemed to be going well. But then Mirabel and Sonia decided to go get water from the dormitory and told Mimi they'd be back soon, leaving their books behind. Suddenly, Mimi found herself alone with Corporal Timi. Within minutes, Corper Timi began asking inappropriate questions about Mimi's sexual experiences, making her feel very uncomfortable. She tried to make an excuse to leave, but Corper Timi insisted she stay. He revealed some photography equipment and started talking about his plans for the night. As Mimi tried to leave, Corper Timi blocked her path and pulled out a portfolio of photos showing women in revealing clothing or completely naked. He pressured her to look at them before he would let her go. Mimi refused firmly and walked toward the door. However, Corper Timi grabbed her arm, pulling her close. His lips brushed against her ear, and from there, things escalated. Corper Timi ended up taking her virginity. Mimi cried out for help, but no one came to her rescue. She cleaned herself up and, later that night, snuck back into the dormitory, crying herself to sleep. Mimi was a bright and hard-working student. Her parents, always busy with their careers, decided to enroll her in a boarding school so she could focus on her education. At Greatland International School, Mimi stood out immediately. She aced all her exams, won quiz competitions, and consistently topped her class. Her academic achievements were undeniable, and her teachers praised her brilliance. However, she was also lonely at school, with her parents far away. Despite excelling, she longed for someone to notice her beyond her academic performance. As part of his National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, Corper Timi, alongside a few colleagues, was assigned to teach at Greatland International School. Timi was well liked by students and staff alike. He was approachable, charismatic, and quickly became a favorite among the pupils. His confidence and friendly nature made him stand out. He paid particular attention to Mimi, admiring her intelligence. As he began to teach her, he was impressed by her brilliance and dedication. Slowly, his admiration grew into something more personal. Timi offered to give Mimi private lessons, claiming that it would help her excel even further. Mimi, eager to please and perform well in her academics, accepted the offer. The private lessons took place after school hours in a quiet classroom. At first, the sessions were focused on studies, but soon, Timi started making personal comments. He praised her beauty and intelligence, and Mimi, not knowing how to react, simply smiled. She trusted him as a teacher and mentor, not realizing his intentions were slowly changing. One day, as students hurried between dorms and classes, Timi approached Mimi in the school plaza. With a soft whisper, he said, "I can't stop thinking about you." Mimi was taken aback, unsure of how to respond. She felt confused and hoped someone nearby had overheard. Despite the public setting, the moment felt isolating, and she didn't know who to turn to for advice. Timi's behavior was becoming unsettling, but he remained a trusted figure in the school, making it difficult for Mimi to voice her concerns. Timi's influence at the school continued to grow. He became someone that students confided in, even those who weren't in his class. His presence during lunch and social gatherings was magnetic. He often shared personal stories and jokes, sometimes veering into inappropriate territory, but no one seemed to mind. Students admired him and were quick to defend his actions, believing that he could do no wrong. He was a mentor, but he also blurred the lines between teacher and friend. Timi invited Mimi to meet him at a nearby cafe after class. She assumed it would be another chance to discuss her studies. But when he arrived, he was in his car and asked her to get in. Without thinking much of it, she complied. They drove for 40 minutes to a city outside school grounds, where Timi took her to a candle-lit restaurant. The atmosphere felt strange, and when he ordered wine, Mimi felt uneasy. Timi's words were no longer about school. Instead, he told her, "I've always wanted to take photos of you." Mimi deflected, expressing urgency to return to the hall before the 11 p.m. curfew. On the drive back from the restaurant, Timi stopped the car near a scenic view of the sea. The night air was heavy, and Mimi felt a sense of dread. Timi placed his hand on her inner thigh, making her uncomfortable. She quickly made an excuse to return to school. The situation had escalated from mere admiration to something dangerous, but Mimi didn't know how to handle it. The power imbalance left her feeling trapped, unsure of how to escape the situation without repercussions. After that evening, Timi began sending personal emails to Mimi, using a private account. He insisted that she only communicate with him through this channel, isolating their conversations from school. His messages became more aggressive over time. If she didn't respond, he would send drunken messages, full of veiled threats. "Why don't you like me? Most girls like me. You better make this up to me." The more Mimi tried to distance herself, the more Timi's behavior worsened, and soon, his frustration spilled over into the classroom. Timi's attitude toward Mimi changed drastically in class. He began publicly humiliating her for minor infractions. If she was late, he would mock her in front of her peers. If she turned in an incomplete assignment, he berated her harshly. Any question she asked was met with degrading comments, and soon, other students began to notice her struggles. Mimi's once flawless academic performance started to suffer, and her confidence plummeted. She felt cornered, knowing that Timi's actions were both personal and professional. Timi favorite student. Mirabel and Sonia noticed that Mimi was taking all the attention of Corper Timi. As he was busy chasing her, they claimed she was doing hard to get, so they came up with a plan to set Mimi up. While Mimi was studying in the library, two other smart girls approached her. "Corper Timi is holding a private lesson for us. Would you like to join?" they asked. Mimi's WAEC exam was coming up, and she was struggling with a particular subject. Although she was hesitant at first, as Corper Timi had been acting strangely towards her lately, she saw this as a chance to get his help. Since two other students were with her, she felt it would be safe, thinking Corper Timi wouldn't try anything inappropriate. That night, the three girls walked to his lodge together. Corper Timi welcomed them in, and they immediately started the lesson, which seemed to be going well. But then Mirabel and Sonia decided to go get water from the dormitory and told Mimi they'd be back soon, leaving their books behind. Suddenly, Mimi found herself alone with Corporal Timi. Within minutes, Corper Timi began asking inappropriate questions about Mimi's sexual experiences, making her feel very uncomfortable. She tried to make an excuse to leave, but Corper Timi insisted she stay. He revealed some photography equipment and started talking about his plans for the night. As Mimi tried to leave, Corper Timi blocked her path and pulled out a portfolio of photos showing women in revealing clothing or completely naked. He pressured her to look at them before he would let her go. Mimi refused firmly and walked toward the door. However, Corper Timi grabbed her arm, pulling her close. His lips brushed against her ear, and from there, things escalated. Corper Timi ended up taking her virginity. Mimi cried out for help, but no one came to her rescue. She cleaned herself up and, later that night, snuck back into the dormitory, crying herself to sleep. Mimi had sleepless nights, experiencing fever, vomiting, and abdominal pains. She knew something was wrong as she browsed on the internet, so she debated whether or not to come forward. She was so weak to move, but she managed to move. She feared the repercussions from Timi, who was adored by students and faculty alike. She knew he had the power to ruin her life further if she spoke out, but she also realized that if he could do this to her, he would do it to others. She couldn't remain silent any longer. Gathering her courage, she compiled all the emails, messages, and photographs she had from Timi and decided to confront the school administration. Mimi sent her evidence to the principal, who was shocked by the severity of the situation. Timi was immediately suspended, pending an investigation. He was prohibited from contacting any students, and Mimi felt a brief sense of relief, thinking that her nightmare was over. However, the suspension only intensified the situation. Timi began spreading rumors about Mimi, turning her peers against her. He claimed that she had been obsessed with him and that she had fabricated the entire story to ruin his career. Mimi's peers rallied behind Timi, convinced that he was innocent. They couldn't believe that their beloved teacher was capable of such behavior. Posters began to appear around school with fabricated quotes attributed to Mimi. She was labeled a liar, a manipulative girl who wanted to ruin Timi's life. A Facebook group was created to support Timi, and dozens of students joined a WhatsApp chat. Mimi's mother had received a frantic call from Mimi. She had asked her to come and withdraw her from school because she was not feeling well. Even though the school was unwilling to release Mimi, insisting there was no need to worry, Mimi stayed firm. She cried and begged to go home. When her mother called the principal, he told her that Mim would need to be isolated for 5 days when she returned if she took her home. Her mother thought she should go home since the school said they could take care of her. But on her way home, Mimi called again through the school phone and asked where she was. She told her I had come but turned back. Your principal said you are going to be taken care of, and Mimi started crying. This got her mother upset and asked her why she was stressing her, reminding her that she'd be home soon for the holidays. Mimi then asked to speak with her uncle. She said, "You people don't understand why I'm asking you to come and pick me up. And now you are leaving." While Mimi's mother was still debating whether to return to the school, she got a call from the house mother. The house mother informed her that Mimi had barely been able to walk the day before and had been crying. She advised that Mimi should be taken to a hospital for a proper checkup. The distressed mother finally went to pick up her daughter. When Mimi arrived home, she was not her usual self. She seemed distant and withdrawn. Mimi turned off all the lights and couldn't even look at her parents in the face. She slept the whole day and only ate a little food. By the early hours of Monday, Mimi's condition had gotten worse. Her mother rushed her to the hospital. While the doctor was examining her, they discovered a discharge. After testing it, they found that it was a used condom that had been left inside her. They tested her urine and found sperm. The infection and sepsis that followed eventually led to Mimi's death. The news of her death spread quickly, and her schoolmates were shocked. The bright, ambitious girl they had once admired was gone. Her dreams of becoming a nurse, of making a difference in the world, had been cut short by the actions of a man she had trusted. Mimi's mother felt an overwhelming sense of guilt for not seeing the signs earlier. She had trusted the school to protect her daughter, but they had failed. The pain of this realization only deepened knowing her little Mimi was gone. In the wake of Mimi's death, the school administration came under intense scrutiny. Parents demanded answers, and students began questioning the environment that had allowed such abuse to happen. The principal, who had initially dismissed concerns, was forced to acknowledge the school's failure to protect its students. Timi's suspension turned into a full investigation, but for many, it was too little, too late. The damage had already been done, and nothing could bring Mimi back. Following Mimi's death, her mother filed a formal complaint against both Timi and the school. Investigators were brought in to examine the evidence, including the messages, emails, and testimonies from students who had witnessed Timi's behavior. The investigation uncovered a history of inappropriate conduct, not only toward Mimi, but also toward other female students. Timi was arrested and charged with sexual abuse and misconduct. The legal battle had just begun, and while justice seemed possible, it was too late for Mimi. Timi was taken into police custody, his once admired reputation shattered. The news of his arrest spread like wildfire, and students who had once defended him were left in disbelief. Many of them couldn't reconcile the image of their favorite teacher with the man now accused of such heinous crimes. Timi's arrest was the first step toward justice, but for Mimi's family, it was a bittersweet moment. They had lost their daughter, and no punishment could ever bring her back. The atmosphere at Greatland International School was never the same after Mimi's death. The school administration faced public backlash for their mishandling of the situation, and changes were demanded. Mimi's story, though tragic, inspired others to come forward. Several students, who had also experienced inappropriate behavior from Timi, began to speak out, sharing their own stories of manipulation and abuse. These testimonies provided even more evidence against him, strengthening the case. The bravery of these students showed that while speaking out is difficult, it is necessary to protect others from suffering the same fate. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Timi was found guilty on multiple counts of sexual abuse and misconduct. The courtroom was silent as the judge announced the sentence. Timi would face significant prison time for his actions. For Mimi's family, it was a moment of justice, but the pain of their loss remained. Timi's conviction sent a message to the community that abuse of power would not be tolerated, and that no one is above the law. Important lessons to learn from this story. Silence protects the abuser, but speaking out can prevent future harm. And it's important to pay attention to the emotional and physical changes in loved ones, as they may be signals of something deeper. Thank you for sticking with us to the very end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do well to like, comments, share, and subscribe to support our growth. Thank you.